Hey there, everybody. Welcome to the Hump. I got my guy Chris with me today. Chris, what day is today? Come on, Chris.
Come on,
Say it.
come
Come on,
on,
say it,
Mark.
Chris.
Don't make me do it.
It's Hump Day.
Let's
Welcome,
get it.
everybody, to episode 18 of the Hump. I have an incredible guest with me today, Chris Walcher. Chris was so determined to get so many people in watching tonight. I'm going to check the LinkedIn. I don't know how many are watching because it doesn't seem to be coming on, but we are live on YouTube. I know that. So we're coming to you guys from YouTube and from LinkedIn, and hopefully from his LinkedIn page. Welcome to the Hump, another episode and a conversation with Chris Walcher, Senior Head of Sales at Cedar Financial. At first, I thought Cedar Financial, I got a guy coming on that's in a completely different business than like the typical tech side of it, but yet there is a tech side to it. And so, but we're going to talk all kinds of things this evening about the phones and inbound and outbound and sales psychology and a whole lot of good stuff. But welcome to the show, Chris. How are you this evening?
I'm doing
What's going
great,
on,
my man. Mark Mack, dude. Thank you for having me. Super
Yes.
excited to be here.
Excellent, excellent. Well, listen, I love the colors. I love the background. I don't know what's going on with the I see. It's more like wainscoting that goes up high, which is nice. I like that.
Yeah.
I got the sit-stand desk and the Pearl Jam poster in the background, I guess, but whatever.
I dig it. I'm with it.
I like cactuses. Cactuses are a sign of growth and wealth. So kudos to the cactus. And I wish I could grow something just like that too. And I could go like this all the time.
This is my baby right now, man.
Yeah. How long is that going on for?
So this journey started probably October of last year, and I'll be honest, man, it's a love-hate relationship. You wake up one morning, it's itchier than ever, and you're just like, man, this is nonsense. But I got enough soldiers in the field who have encouraged me to keep it going. I'm waiting for that December call sign for the role of Santa in the mall. So you know what I mean?
Excellent.
You know what I
Excellent.
mean?
Yeah. I had it going for a while. I had this like thing, but of course, at my age, my birthday is tomorrow. I'll plug that. I don't know why, but I
Get it.
Why not?
Happy early birthday.
I this got gray, and I thought it like kind of looked a bit sort of distinguished in a way. And then my son basically said, "You look old."
Okay.
And
Yeah.
I said, "Okay."
Done. Done.
He always talks about having Riz. Mom, did Dad have Riz back in the day? And I'm like, well, first of all, we didn't call it Riz. We called it charisma, right? Because that's what it's short for.
That has to be the origin. I haven't gone deep into the weeds on the new, what would it be? Gen X lingo that's in style now.
Gen W or Zero.
Yeah, right. We're running out of letters.
My son is 9 years old, so I don't know really what that generation is. Gen Z, but Gen Z is already in their 20s. Whatever, 20s to 30s. But Chris, listen, I really thank you again for coming on. I'm going to give you just a couple of minutes to have the floor and simply tell us exactly who Chris Walcher is. Where do you live? What's your family life like? Where did you start your career, and how did you end up where you are today?
Yeah, man, cool. So I'm gonna use part of my few minutes to. Can I just give you, Mark Mack, your flowers real quick, my man?
Sure.
Look, I've been following you for a long time. Yeah, they're coming.
Hey,
They're coming.
The door's ringing.
Wait for it. Wait for it. No, man, I've been following you for a long time. We've had the opportunity to exchange pleasantries, things that we agree on, more importantly, things that we disagree on in different comment sections, so on and so forth. You are like the seller's seller, dude. You are really a hype man for different sales agents. Doesn't matter what the industry is, but even with the Hump Show, everything that you're doing on this platform is really just encouraging and providing these little nuggets of information and try this or don't do this. And so I just had to take some of the time to at least let that be known, man. I'm Team Mark Mack, and I appreciate what you're doing, especially for experienced sellers, newer sellers. All right, I'll cut it off there. I feel like we went deep enough, but bro,
You're lucky I
my
don't have the clock. I have a Jessie, my girl. She puts the clock up. You'd already used too much time.
You know what I mean? No, for myself and the people that obviously tune in weekly, you show up, dude, and we appreciate you. So, more importantly, back over to what's up, everybody? I'm Chris Walcher. I'm the senior director at Cedar Financial. I'm currently living in Houston, Texas. However, I am born and raised in Los Angeles, California. That's where I started my journey with Cedar Financial. So, if you're hearing dudes or bros, you'll have to forgive me. Some of that LA street talk. It's just hard to shake no matter what state you live in.
Okay. At least it's a bro, not a bruh.
I mean, hey, there might be a bra that slips out. I can't make any
Uh,
promises. I won't lie. Going back to my Dogtown skateboard days. Um,
oh,
so
Lords
yeah,
of
man.
Dogtown? I know what Lords of Dogtown are.
Oh, I'm in the Lords of Dot. In fact, just last week I posted an interview of Rodney Mullen on Tony Hawk's podcast,
Yeah.
and just kind of coined it. He was laying into something like the impossible is begging to be done, and so I felt like that was relevant for the link. But I mean, that dude created the kickflip and so many other street style tricks that we've obviously expanded upon today. But he is the true OG of street skateboarding. Um, so, a little bit of background about myself. So, I'm out in Houston, Texas.
I'm a
I got
skateboarder.
two beautiful little girls, a 4-year-old Kylie, a 6-year-old Bryn. Um, so before I started in the finance industry, funny enough, I was the head coach of women's soccer at CSUN, Cal State Northridge University. And in tandem to that, I was working at a multi-level marketing, one of those MLMs with World Financial Group, selling life
Hmm.
insurance and IUL policies and whatnot. And
Hmm.
so that was kind of my introduction into the
Universal.
finance world. And then, to be fair, my wife, or fiance at the time, she's like, "Hey, Chris, about time you get a big boy job. Like, let's go for it." And so
Oh.
I found Cedar Financial, and I've been with that firm ever since, and just kind of doing what I can to rise in the ranks. I did a little bit of debt collection, a little bit of admin work, and then, the old adage, nobody grows up wanting to be a salesperson. You kind of just accidentally stumble upon it and it absorbs your whole life. And so that happened to me. And so now here
Yeah.
I am leading onshore and offshore sales divisions for my team at Cedar
Oh.
Financial, which is very cool.
Onshore and offshore. That's quite interesting because, wow, I wish I had awesome. I'm glad you told me
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Um,
Uh, no, I was just thinking like, there is that discussion that that goes around about what they would say is offshore it's outsourcing, but you're essentially, because unless you own that team in wherever they are, it's an
yeah.
outsourced situation, and you're using an offshore team. Now, for in my career, when I was back in the 90s, I was in IT, and that was actually, it was a huge thing that crushed us actually soon after 9/11. A
Mm,
lot of the companies that were building software and tools and things to start to build their businesses in finance and whatever, now we're offshoring it, going to India and Pakistan, and it
I,
basically crippled our business overnight. I went from doing like 6 million ARR to doing like practically nothing the next
yeah.
day, because
No, I
he
could
sent
believe it.
25 of my consultants home, and it was like
Right.
just devastating. So I'd be interested in digging into how you're using that kind of offshore team and how successful that is.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that you had transitioned from soccer into sales, which and even that late in life, right? I mean, essentially, you had been doing other things, in other, had basically a different career as a soccer coach and other things. So quite interesting to hear that. And I mean, was it just like a leap of faith you took, or what was going through your head when you said like, oh, I don't, your wife said it, but then like
So,
you had to have your own, like what was going through your head? I mean, I know how
yeah.
influential your wife could be, but like what was the pushback that you were trying
No,
to?
first of all, it was super scary.
Yeah.
And one, like, I don't know how much the listeners know about how much a college soccer coach gets paid, but I'll tell you, CSUN wasn't like a Division 1 in the news on ESPN. We were a solid Division 3 or 4 type of club,
Right.
and those guys aren't racking in a ton of money. So
Right.
side by side, I started doing the insurance policy, the World Financial Group stuff, and
Mhm.
it was really just kind of slow rolling on developing some traction even in that life. And
Yeah.
and so we kind of got to the point where we are getting a little bit closer to our wedding date, and I was kind of feeling that pressure of like, maybe now is the time that I should just jump full into now corporate America, if you will. And so I made the leap, kind of leveraging my minimal experience in the finance world. And then honestly, got to shout out my CEO at Cedar, this guy Amir Rez. He really took me under his wing as a young guy. I've been working with him for 9 years now, and
Mm.
honestly taught me the entire lay of the land of the debt collection world, accounts receivable management, first party, third party, legal escalation, learning about the regulations, which to most people, insanely boring information, but it resonated with me, and
Mhm.
he put me in an opportunity where I could get to harness that opportunity for growth. And dude, I just ran the football up the field. Like it was a happy couple of things, details, accident that occurred that really catapulted me into some of the stuff that I get to do today. So super blessed.
Yeah. It's awesome though, because there's been a lot of people who have transitioned out of other industries that you wouldn't otherwise think can be or would want to be even successful within the sales sort of side of the world.
Yeah.
Sales, while and by the way, again, thank you extremely for the kind words you said during that piece earlier. But I feel like I came into, like, when 2020, COVID hit, and I started doing like this whole thing at home and really being an outbound business development expert. And I use what I did in face to face now on the phone, and I just come natural. And it's like it still was a transition for me. But when I came in here, it was so weird how so many people, you know, how it's viewed, how sales was viewed, how wrong it's viewed. I mean, I think
Yeah.
we grew up learning that sales was icky because, like, the guy would call, I'd pick up the phone, I'm 9 years old, and I'd say, oh, hi. And he'd say, hi, little fella. It's Mike from Service Trade, whatever. Is your daddy home? And I'd be like, Dad, there's a telemarketer on the phone. And he'd be like, hang up.
Hang up.
Like, or like, I'm not interested, And so, like, we've been conditioned when we were kids, to just think that way, right? And we even call it a cold call.
Yeah.
Why? Why do we call it a cold call? You're already anticipating it. To people, you're telling people it's cold already. It's like, why
No,
even say that?
definitely.
And there's a whole bunch
Definitely.
of things that I've been preaching about with respect to that. But the point is that, like, coming from another industry, you have this perspective. Not even coming from sales from another industry, you're coming from being like in the sports world, in the teaching world, in the education world, and there's been this huge what's it called when people migrate, like a huge, like, I forget what you would say that is, but
I don't know, like a jump, a change
a
of
journey,
environment. Yeah. Oh,
a
okay.
journey from teaching into the tech world or into the
Yeah.
sales tech world. and how that particular world operates and talks, and their language had precluded these people from wanting to come over in the past. But it was the salaries, and just like the summers off just didn't do it for some people anymore, right? Like
Yeah.
they wanted more. And so that's not unusual. You were doing it, and even though you might have enjoyed doing it, even from a leadership perspective, I think that's the key thing, probably what you've taken over. How has that impacted you in terms of how you coach or train your
My
underlings?
current team, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, look, dude, I think that you hit the nail on the head. Especially in a sales position, there are so many outside of sales jobs that register and calibrate with being successful in sales. Like, I'll even start before I was coaching. And so here's another little plug. When I was a kid growing up in LA, I was a quote unquote child
Filmmaker.
actor.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
right.
saw documentary
No, I
filmmaking in
so I graduated into filmmaking behind, but like, dude, I was 5 years old and I got booked as an extra in the movie The Little Rascals, right? And so I was doing acting school, and that kind of graduated me into doing like some theater performances. And so just harnessing that portion of my experience, feel really comfortable talking to people. I like to think that I'm pretty animated with the way that I present storytelling or my inflection, the way that you're communicating. And then more to your question with like coaching a soccer's team or a soccer team rather is, dude, my first week when I was the coach, I was pretending like I was some English Premier League top tier professional sports coach. And my athletes hated me. And I knew that they hated me. And so, kind of the biggest lesson inside of that was, hey man, this isn't a one size fits all. You're not on TV. You really got to lean into your man management. Everybody's got a different personality. So, like, one person I could scream at and that would fire him up and get back on the pitch and let's go. Where if I had that approach with somebody who was perhaps a little bit more sensitive, dude, you just knocked him out of the game for good. And so, really, the biggest impact that I'm taking from my coaching career, especially into leading a sales team, is not a one size fits all approach. And you really gotta focus and put that energy into your man management, build those relationships, and understand what type of tone and what type of approach is going to get the best out of your warriors. And so it all translates over back into sales, regardless of what you've done.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's interesting answer, because I had a guest on many moons ago. Actually, I think it was on our other show, who came over from teaching, and I asked him, what was kind of what you brought over, and a very similar concept, a similar answer. But what he said was, it's in school when he had, and I don't know how many kids are on the soccer team, but like in a class of like 25,
Same size,
uh,
yeah.
yeah, you have all these different people. They learn differently. I was really
Hmm.
kidding. They learn differently. Coaching a team, I think, is cool, because it's like it's a sport, whereas like trying to keep them engaged as a teacher per se, it's like I'm
Probably
not
more
trying to take
difficult. No, probably
I'm
more
not taking
difficult.
anything away from the sports thing, but I was kind of like, so now he's like, has this, like he said, he was like, I'll sit and I'll think, I know I got to teach Beth, I got to say this to her, and I got to tell Michael, that he could be good with that doing this way, because he learns differently, and it
No,
was
for
just,
sure.
it's kind of very similar. And I think the teaching thing is definitely translates, and I wish there were more. They do try to come over, and of course, sometimes there's this gap, that
Hmm.
recruiters can't see past, or hiring managers can't see past. But it all kind of speaks to like sales psychology, right? And I think one of the things, I think, as a sales leader, I imagine, if being trained by somebody else, there's always that culture shift, culture exchange, how you learn from him, so maybe you would mimic some of those things and then add your own twist. But sales psychology is also rooted in leadership. I think it's the same thing, right? Like, so
Absolutely.
you guys spend a lot of time on the phone, or is it mostly like, how does the kind of sales
Yeah,
process
so I
work with
mean,
you?
I have two different divisions. I have an inbound division and I have an outbound division with like my real hunters, and I know that we'll get into that. But really our primary channel is I'm trying to get like a visual meeting going, whether you're using a Teams or a Zoom, like start the engines if it's cold approach through the phone. But when we jump into that discovery, when we really get to the nuts and bolts of it, I want to be face to face. You know, I want to be able, because there's certain elements going into psychology that so much is portrayed without being spoken, whether it's just how you're slouching, or when somebody's talking to you and you're kind of like shaking your head and acknowledging. There are a bunch of these like silent killer cues that I really feel like add into whatever perception or authority that you're trying to present when you get into those circumstances, for sure.
Yeah. Do you think there's some psychology to, because some people have a Zoom call. Like right now, I'm looking directly at just underneath my camera. I'm not even looking at you. I see
Yeah.
you in my periphery because I don't have the whole screen. And so, but does it look like I'm looking straight?
It looks like you're looking straight at me, where if I
Does it look like I'm
peripheral,
looking at you now?
no,
I am, because
you're
you're right
looking,
here on the screen, but my camera's up
but
here,
looking
and
at
that's
the camera, yeah, and vice versa. In my peripherals, I see that I'm watching you exclusively, and yours is a little bit pegged to the side of my camera
right.
because I don't know, maybe it's just from experience. I'm prone to want to watch you and even pick up on those silent cues that you might be projecting. Like you could be walking around swinging your shirt, having a party, but talking to me with a business inflection. And so that's obviously a wild example, but those are the type of things where I really feel like that face to face, it does create an energy as well.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's funny. There's a psychology to it, right? There's this like what people think is how you're being perceived, like you said, and it's funny because like all the different training, coaching type of models, methodologies, whatever you've had experience with or otherwise, at the end of the day, I always say this. It's funny. I make fun of things like MedPick and Medic and BANT and all these other acronyms, right? Because at the end of the day, it's all Sandler
Yeah,
somehow kind of regurgitated and with their own little twist.
that's right.
And what is Sandler? Sandler to me is really rooted in very common, normal communication,
Hmm.
conversation, right? Some people say to me, one of the biggest pushbacks I get for my openers are, you can't say how are you or how's it going. It's not
I see
it's
that
it's
all over.
it's not genuine, right? And you know what's interesting? I actually agree with them, right? And I
Hmm.
disagree with them, and I'll tell you why. I agree with them because the psychology behind it is, if I say, "Hey, hey, Chris, this is Mark from Cedar Financial. How are you today?" They're like, "Why does Cedar Financial care how I am today?" Like, and
Yeah.
first of all, how you are is actually a personal thing. So let's just say you say, "How's it going?" Still,
Hmm.
why does why does Chris from Cedar Financial, Mark from Cedar Financial, care about me? So that's disingenuous. What's not disingenuous is, "Hey, Chris, it's Mark Mack. How's it going?"
Yeah.
"Oh, fine, Mark. How's it going with you?" "Great, Chris. Thanks for asking. I appreciate it. You don't know me."
Yeah.
Now he's like, "Okay, yeah, I don't know you, but," and they responded genuinely, but it's not even so much I'm looking for them to respond genuinely. I'm eliciting a human condition, right?
Hmm.
When somebody walks down the street, "Hey, how's it going? Hey, how's it going?" It's normal. It starts a two-way. I mean, you're probably not gonna have a dialogue with the person. They'll walk right by,
Right.
but like it starts the two-way dialogue, right? And that's ultimately what you're trying to get to. That somebody feels equal. That you're starting this conversation back and forth, right? You don't know me, but I was calling for a specific reason, right? Are you still with the, any of a number of things can come after that, right? I won't get into it, but the
But look,
psychology behind it is that it's normal conversation, right? And if I said, "I'm Mark from Cedar Financial," yes, it's disingenuous, but now all he's hearing is there's a guy named Mark who's asking me how I'm doing. So what else am I going to
yeah.
say?
Well, but that's what I want to pinpoint is even in those two different intros, I think because the verbiage, the actual words used differ only slightly, but I think you're able to paint that, oh wow, this feels genuine and more perception because of your how you said it, what your tone was. And so like,
Sure, but
dude, have you ever
I think
seen
anybody can achieve it. I'm thinking anybody can achieve it. You just got
yeah,
to drop the company name. I'm telling you, that is the
I'm a
key.
contributor. In fact, I commented on one of your posts about that as well. Is yeah, drop the company name.
Now I
And
get this.
I'm even to the point where I drop the last name. Like nobody cares what my last name.
Oh
Now
yes.
for you, I know you got a coin, Mark Mack. If I had that type of handle, I wouldn't drop the last name. But you know what I mean? Chris
You
Walcher.
know what
Like,
my real last name is?
what is it?
Oh, you don't know my real last name?
No, I
No,
don't
you
know.
gotta find out. You have to
Oh
find out.
dang. Well, I'll do some research and I'll let you know on the outside.
Yeah. So I only was making a joke about sales psychology being dead, but like I think that's the problem with people is and you know what? Like the other things that are out there, the funny openers and whatever that people
I
talk
dig
about,
it.
those actually they work, right? Because they work because most of the time, hopefully, you're delivering it on somebody who's never heard it,
Hmm.
and they'll genuinely work, right? There is a psychology behind it. What I believe that everything else but just normal speak, like I've been preaching, why those other things don't, to me, they're not good for me and they don't work for me, and I don't, you could go use them, and if they work for you, great. But what I think they are like what people think about this sort of jokingly opener, like, do you want to take a chance and roll the coin, and or you want to hang up, whatever. And you'll catch a baby boomer now and again, right? That'll dig that. But what that is to me is it may lower a certain barrier that you're trying to lower, like they're just wait, somebody answers the phone, who are you, what do
Hmm.
you want, they want to know who are you, what do you want, how long is it going to take. And so you're getting that out, right? But the problem is now, because you were jokey, I think it raises a skepticism barrier that you don't really capture. You don't see it. You think you're getting away with it because they're giving you the time.
Right.
But in reality, they are all of a sudden got this other barrier up, and you don't see it or feel it or hear it because you're like, oh, I just scored with that silly opener, right? And
No, for
so,
sure.
and it's like weird because the psychology is telling you, oh, it lowered this barrier. Let me now pitch. But
Hmm.
yet you don't realize that they're actually skeptical now of you because they
Yeah.
think it's a joke. It's
It's
kind
like
of like,
killing your authoritative presence on the phone. But look, you bring up a good point because, and you see this as much as I do on the permission based opener or just go right into it. And I was talking to someone last week, this guy Jacob Tuttle. It can't be as black and white as that. Like, look, if I'm calling an SMB Joanne's flower shop and I know that, like, look, they're lucky to make 500K a year. Heck yeah, I could go in with a little bit friendly or humorous. Would you toss your phone out the window if I told you this was a cold call? But put yourself in the same shoes of if you're calling a CFO or chief revenue officer of Bank of America or some finance
yeah,
titan.
yeah, you're not
Um,
saying
yeah,
that.
so I think it really and I hate to just throw those sales
No,
acronyms around, but that
it's an industry.
KYP, know your
Yeah,
customer, like no,
absolutely.
like it really that would set my tone on what that approach is going to be 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. Like it's definitely knowing the customer and what's going to resonate with them. I actually wanted to get into, because you mentioned earlier, you run an inbound team and an outbound team, and there's a lot of talk now in the industry about, there's companies out there, especially in SaaS sales, that are they get a lot of inbound, right?
Yeah.
With the proliferation of mass email type of stuff, programs that have yielded quite a bit of inbound, or getting better at digital marketing, and there's a lot of these inbound products. It has to be, for me, in my opinion, it has to be about the volume of inbound. If you have a ton of inbound, then I suspect you need some actual dedication to that versus on a full-time basis, whether that's AI or it's a call center or whatever. So how do you guys handle it, and how is that impacting your business having such specialized roles?
Yeah, so I mean, first, and I think it's important to note is that um, I'm in the debt collection world. Debt collection is almost biblical. It's been around for that long. Funeral homes and people that haven't paid their bills are kind of the two industries that are never going out of business. And so, with respect to that inbound versus outbound, or just inbound kind of specialized role, um, it's not just an order taker. Like, there's certain level of information that an AI bot or some kind of, hey, fill out this form and that'll be good to go. But especially in my industry, man, that discovery, whether I got it from outbound or it came to me inbound, it really requires specialized skills, active listening, being able to ask questions based off of information obtained. Like, and I was even commenting again, going back to LinkedIn, like, what would you consider this? Because technically it's inbound. You get an email or someone pops onto your website. They work for a $500 million company and they go, hey, Mark, I have an RFP coming out and we would like to private invite your company to bid for that. That it came inbound, but I'm not having an SDR do that, or I need probably one of my business executives or one of my senior AEs to carry the
Absolutely.
football in that direction. And so, and I
Absolutely.
acknowledge and recognize that my specific industry is probably a little bit different from selling a product. Like, dude, in a lot of cases for debt collection, we operate on contingency primarily. And
Mhm.
so getting them to assign their debts to you, sometimes the easiest part. But I don't make any money. My team doesn't make any money unless we actually collect it, you know?
Obviously, yeah.
So it's a super caveat. You could have just scored a $500 million company, millions of dollars in placements, but nobody is seeing a single dollar sign unless our service side of the business shows up to blow up and we collect
Mhm.
it.
What is
So,
this? What is the inbound then? Like, because
uh,
I know I've owed debt collectors all kinds of money, and I ain't calling them. So,
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, from the sales side is, look, dude, we do organic marketing through like LinkedIn and
oh,
different drip campaigns.
to get people
Yeah.
to transfer the debt to you. I got
Oh,
you.
yeah,
So,
yeah. So,
I got
like, let's say for the hump, you had an advertiser and you, whatever, supposed to pay them, or they were supposed to pay you X amount of money so that they could promote your show, and they didn't do that. And then they just ghost you. In a scenario like that, you know, you could contact a debt collection agency, say, look, I have this invoice, I have this agreement. This guy owes me $5,000 for a sponsorship that fell through, and I'm trying to collect on that.
yeah. So there is that inbound. Okay, I got you.
Yeah.
Is that? I mean, but so you think it needs, besides the sophistication needed to understand whether it's even a debt you want to take on? I got that. Isn't there
Yeah.
a lower level that could handle the inbound?
For sure.
You know,
For sure,
in a
like,
way that's okay. So, some basic questions and then have a callback, or do
yeah.
you think that there's a gap there that where you'll lose that prospect to somebody who will ultimately get on the phone with them immediately?
So, I mean, like with my firm right now, we don't even really have SDRs. It is you're an AE, you're a senior AE on the inbound team, which means hyper specialized skills, hyper specialized and sector specific. If you were
Hmm.
a healthcare client, there's a million questions that I would have to ask you with respect to insurance, coordination of
Gotcha.
benefits, HIPAA regulation. Well, if you're,
Yeah.
say, a finance company, way different line of questioning. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I get the
in my
sectors.
world, that inbound role, you're super specialized. And I want my
Interesting.
warriors to be able to carry the football and not have to schedule a call back. But if they're on the
Absolutely.
horn, then beep the horn until we get the business.
Yeah. A little bit of a different model, but absolutely resonates with me. It makes sense. I have a friend who's I don't know how, if you look back at some of my other episodes, but Shane Mahi,
Mm,
he runs a company called Mega AI, and they are helping to transform the debt collection industry with their AI bot.
I love it.
No, yeah. So, no, but great, interesting space. I mean, for me, honestly, it's because I get a lot of calls from debt collectors
No,
over the
I hear
years.
you. And there's a
You
bunch
know,
of
uh,
TikTok warriors that go and, if they call you, you don't have to pay your bill, and
that's
request.
not true.
I'm gonna give everybody sound
Don't not
advice.
pay your bill.
Do not follow that advice.
No,
100%. The
definitely not.
best advice I could give anybody even if you're in a place of a financial hardship, you can't pay off the whole thing.
I'll tell
If
you what
you
happens.
communicate with them,
Yeah, absolutely.
you're going to be fine. But the moment that you ghost them or completely just disregard, if the
That's when
balance
it
is
becomes
significant
trouble.
enough, it's coming for you, baby. It's coming for
Yeah.
you.
I mean, look, and I think some people get to the point of like, I'm at a point in my life, honestly, like I don't do that because I don't live too far beyond my means anymore.
Right, right.
But like, I think about, well, the thing is this, right? I'll give you an example. This is kind of funny, but like, I've had a very serious problem with, uh, tolls,
Okay. I know that
tolls and
world.
parking.
Yep.
Yeah, and so I have a lot of easy pass problems and not
Mm-hmm.
having the easy pass in the car. And then before now it's most of the places that do have like the toll by mail, but then I won't pay it on time, so they'll slap on a $30 charge. In some cases, a $60 charge. And it's just stupid of me. It's stupid of
Yeah.
me and my wife. We've probably wasted so much money over the course of my life
Me too.
on
Me
just
too.
that. But what I have is a great relationship with a company called CCS, Credit Collection Services, because they're
Get
the
it.
ones that collect for EasyPass. And you know what? They are. They don't know me by first name necessarily. I won't say that, although that's probably
Yeah.
funnier. Sounds funnier.
Uh-huh.
They are. They'll negotiate, right? Like so. Like I owed at some one point. I don't owe them anything now, but I owe them, and it was like $479. And I'm like, 400. All I said to them, like, I didn't even say I wanted a deal.
Yeah.
I said, $479. What are you talking
Tone.
about? How
Yeah.
did I do that? She's like, well, I can make it $360 if you pay it today. Okay, here you go.
Yeah.
Like I
But
almost sounded like I
you
was
only
gonna rip her head off, and
you
then
only
I was
get
like,
there
okay.
if you communicate with them. And that's the number one thing that a consumer, a business, if you got a valid debt out there, just communicate. Just communicate. Because
Yeah,
more than likely you are going to get one of those little sneaky deals.
yeah.
And it's really just on the basis of you showing up and being willing to engage and ultimately, dude, just like accept accountability. Like,
I'll tell you who doesn't make deals: American Express.
yeah, I know.
You owe them six
Hard
thousand dollars. You got to
hard
pay them six
pressed
thousand
in
dollars.
that credit card world, in that your checking banking world, you're hard pressed to catch a sweet deal.
Yeah,
Um,
I've had my fair share of being in debt. People talk about that like it's a sign of empowerment. Like being on drugs or alcohol, or I've been
yeah,
in
yeah.
debt my whole life and now I'm financially free. I think there is something to that, but I don't know. That's just life, right?
No,
It's
it's
like when
life.
people, it's like when people say, oh, I went through this 2-year period where I was drinking, partying all the time, and it was bad for me.
Like a
Well, how
badge
old were
of
you?
honor at the
How
time.
old were
Yeah.
you? I was 27. That's what you're supposed to do at
Yeah, like
27
what are
years
you
old.
doing, man?
if you
No,
if you
it's
guys
so
knew
true.
if you guys knew what I was doing at 27 years old, anybody know what the palladium is? No. Anyways,
Right, right. But no, I mean, like, not to get stuck up on this, but think about like student debt. That's obviously in the top tier of any type of debt nationwide. And look, there's a lot of components of student debt that even me, as an obligation to the credit and finance world, we've got to go after it. But just ridiculous interest charges. You hear those stories of someone who's like, well, my tuition was 250,000. So far, I've paid 240,000 and I still owe 315,000. Like there's a
oh,
really
it's
kind
interesting.
of unfair makeup.
Yeah,
And of course, obviously we have our obligations to the credit, but I mean,
yeah.
ultimately I call a spade, and I'm more prone to side with the borrower and just hey man, I feel you. Work with me, keep communicating with me. We're gonna come out with a way to make this happen for you.
Chris, is there a different? There's a difference. So there's companies that go out and they'll buy, or whether it's inbound or outbound, right? So you're
True.
going and probably say, hey, do you guys have debt that we could buy? I get it, right? So like, are there people who like are there companies? Because a lot of times what'll happen, like I've owed some money to hospitals or like for hospital
Hmm.
procedures or whatever, and they'll say, I get this call from what looks like a different company, and they'll say, um, you owe this money. And then I'm like, okay, there are collections for,
Hmm.
and it's not like internal collections, but it's collections. And then they say, you owe $600, right? And so you got to give me 600. And then I said back to him, I said, well, you bought that $600 debt on at maybe 40 cents on the dollar. So why
Pennies
don't
on the dollar. Yeah.
whatever. So I'm like, I'm giving the benefit of the doubt, right? And so can you make me a deal? And they go, we're not a collection agency. We're collecting for the hospital, for the insurance company, whatever it is, whatever they were collecting for, the company, the association of the hospital. And then there's those that actually buy the debt, right, at like a pennies on the dollar, and that's why they
Yeah.
can negotiate with you. So is that competition for you guys? Like,
I
are
mean,
there is that just a third party handling the debt collection for the hospital versus the financial company, which you guys are, is you're
yeah,
paying for that debt, you're putting it on your books, and then you're going out and collecting it. What's the difference?
So Cedar Financial, while we do entertain portfolio purchases, we are what is referred to as a third-party assignee. And so what does
Okay.
that mean? If you gave me one of your debts, I don't own the debt. I don't have the authority to say, oh yeah, 60%, and I'm always gonna have to check in with you and go, hey, okay, Mark, this is where I'm at. Doesn't look like they're gonna pay the whole thing. You want to go back and forth? And so that's like the nature of a third party assignee. And the opposite side of the table, and not like debt purchasers only are a competitor, but it's definitely a different process. And then going back to like what you said with medical billing, a lot of those guys, if it ages out and there's no insurance affixed to it, you do see a lot of healthcare providers sell off their portfolio because they're just trying to get whatever they can right off the remaining balance. And then now that debt purchaser who still needs to be licensed and follow all the regulations of what like an assignee would be, they just now own the debt outright. So they're now they've
Reverse
replaced
loan sharks.
we're their creditor now. Yeah. So
It's like a reverse loan shark, right?
yeah,
They
I
didn't really
mean,
actually give the money to that person, but they're going to be the ones that are going to cause damage to that person if they don't pay.
no, for sure, for sure. And
You
you
know,
especially see that on accounts that might be qualified for like the legal world. You have a company and you're like, well, I don't want to try and sue this guy for the funds because I'm worried about my PR and I don't want to put a bad taste in anybody's mouth, but I'll hawk it off to a debt
right?
purchaser. And now who's the name on the suit? It's not
Yeah.
Marky Mark. It's,
Uh,
hey, ABC debt purchaser company against this owing. So there's a bunch of different windows at how not competition, it's just a different lay of the land.
Yeah, I understand that. Justin Liam said, since medical debt can't be listed on credit reports anymore, has that impacted how people are actually paying back medical bills?
My man knows the world. So look, not to dive deep into the window of just an absolute, if you're in it, you know about it. But so obviously the political landscape of the US has changed a bit. Inside of that political landscape has been the disbarring of the CFPB, which generally sanctions how agencies and other financial institutions are able to communicate, affect, or provide consequence to patients or individuals. And so, to answer the question poignantly, 100% and without question, the CFPB releasing that ruling that you can no longer credit report or communicate with any bureaus on behalf of a medical debt has limited the leverage that debt collection agencies are able to instill to encourage patients to want to repay. Now, are there alternative solutions? Heck yeah, there are. Assignment of the accounts earlier. And really what I would recommend to healthcare providers and agencies alike is lean into what we call early intervention. The sooner, like the old adage in our world is that the longer a debt goes unpaid, the less collectible it's going to be over time. If you're starting that pursuit, call it 14 days, 30 days after when that original balance was owed, there is a far greater probability that you're going to find success on the other side because you're getting to it quicker. And so the makeup for us not being able to credit report is making sure that we are addressing the issue earlier, remaining amicable. We want to let the patient know, hey, look, we're on your side. We just want to make sure that you see the other side of this. But yeah, ultimately that change, it does create quite a bit of a challenge for not just Cedar, but really any agency that's working in that world.
What do you think of the educational debt problem?
So, I mean, another industry where we're just seeing some tremendous changes in higher education debt right now. You've
That's
got different lays of the land with loan forgiveness. Okay. Obviously, like we
right.
spoke on earlier, they're just you're not your EDU loan providers. I don't want to say any names, but they provide
HESC.
egregious. Yeah, right. I mean, hey, come on. The
I
egregious
have some.
interest rates going into that. Well, my bill was only 250K. How do I owe 300 now? And so the lay of the land with student loans is going to be ever changing. And that's another one where I'd say, hey, look, there are some consolidation plans out there where, if you pay for 10 years' time, then that's a good way to be able to wipe out that remaining balance. But at
Mhm,
the core of it is you have to communicate. You got to talk to these guys because the
yeah.
moment that they think that whether it's the institution or the agency that is managing the debt, the moment they think that you've just absolutely ghosted, you're not coming up for surface at any point, that's when some of those more consequential things happen. And going back to loan forgiveness, guess who that loan forgiveness profile is targeting for people they want to forgive? People who were already paying. So
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a double-edged sword.
I don't know
I mean,
why. I don't. I think after a certain amount of time, they should just forgive the debt based on just saying, "Hey, I realize you're probably not going to pay us, so
yeah,
see you
but that would
later."
rock the financial institutions and the bursters. You imagine if all of the 10-year USC clients were just like, you know what, 10 years passed. I think I'm done. I think I'm done. Like that, you know, that
Well, actually, I have
repayment
a. It's funny.
calculus.
It's a really good feeling. There was some people online. I remember a couple of folks who have posted some things about them becoming debt free out of their student debt, and it's interesting. Uh, my friend Keith lives down in Virginia. He's married to a doctor, and she is, she had, despite her parents having money, she had a huge amount of debt coming out of med school, right?
Especially med
And
school.
yeah, and I remember him telling me one time we went away together to go see a show or something, and we were just chatting, smoking cigars or whatever, and he's just like, "Oh yeah, by the way, yeah, she paid off her debt." And like, because like I remember when she got a job for like 350K, I was like, "Wow, you guys are set now, right?" He's like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "We pay $6,000 a month
Yeah.
to student debt, you know?" And I was like, "Oh, you're about making the same as I'm making,
Yeah.
right?" And then so he's like, "Oh, so drinks on you, I guess."
Right. The lesser of two evils, man.
No, but it's definitely it does take a toll no matter how much you have, right? Because obviously it's all relative. You get paid 350K, but you're paying 4,000 a month. It's like,
Yeah.
I
No,
understand, but
it really is all
if you're
relative.
making only 80K and you're paying 100, $400 a month or $500 a month, it's all relative, right?
Yeah.
So you mentioned earlier you have a podcast and and I was asking you a question the other day, and it led you to talk about what you learned from competitors and how you access them. So I'm curious. I didn't think that's what you meant, but like that you bring them on to the podcast. So
Yeah.
tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, for sure. So again, and this is, I don't want to say it's exclusive to just the world that I live in with debt collection, but there is enough debt in the world for everybody to be rich. And so, no, there is for all my agencies that are out there. And so I run several different podcasts, but poignantly, there's one that I run that's called Collecco Connection, where I talk with AR professionals and our competitors. Hey man, what do you do in this circumstance? Or what are you feeling when this happens? And because of that, I mean, competitor kind of just gives me a bad taste in my mouth. Like I'm trying to lean in and learn as much as possible. And if they got a tiny trick of the trade that hey, inbound team, maybe we should start doing this. Or if I'm able to dispel something, like again, there's enough debt out there for all of us to be rich. And the only way we're truly going to address all of the challenges inside of that side of financial sector is, it sounds cliche, but dude, we got to work together, man. We got to work together because a trillion voices are way louder than one voice. And once we can develop a collective army where we're not finger pointing or hiding secrets, we're going, look, I do this. Oh, I do. Well, oh, sweet. I'm going to take a little bit of that. I'll take a little bit of what you said. And that's really how we're going to grow the evolution of this industry, honestly.
Yeah. I'm curious if you, is there a ratio? Is there more people in America that owe versus people who don't? Probably less people that owe, I
Man,
would
what a
think. There's probably
wild.
more
Yeah. There's
rich people.
probably, I mean, I forget what the exact figure was, but I think through ACA International, which is kind of our primary sanctioned association overseeing debt collection, I mean, the number's bonkers. We're talking like 3 trillion coast to coast with individual and commercial combined of how much money is out there that is waiting for repayment. It's really a bonkers figure.
Yeah. No, I didn't mean from
So
a business perspective. I meant personal
for
finances.
I wouldn't be
Yeah,
surprised if
individual
that.
finances. That is their 50%. Like say there's 300 million people in the United States, maybe more now. 400 million people in the United States. Is more than 200 million people in debt? And I don't mean like I'm
I
talking
wouldn't
about in debt
quote me on
collection.
it, but no, I
There's a
feel you.
difference
Like,
between being in debt and being in debt
and
collection, I
just
think,
having a
Hollywood.
debt somewhere living in the world.
Everybody has debt. Yeah,
It's
because you owe
definitely
something on
over
something.
50. It's definitely over
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
50%
Because even if
for
you
sure.
think about the rich people, the only reason why they're rich is because they haven't really paid for everything that they're
Well, I
living
mean,
off
are
and
you
owe.
kidding? The rich people are the ones that are leveraging the system. Are you kidding? The more
Exactly.
debt that they jump into, the more they're able to develop growth and
Maybe
expansion for
that's the
their own
problem.
personal. I mean, there's
That's a topic for another conversation.
we live
So
in a.
I actually I'm curious because I think Celeste said she can only focus on your beard.
I told you, man. I can't get rid of it. I can't get rid of it at this point. It's
Not
love
gonna
hate.
lie, I'm getting better at understanding people's little acronyms. Not gonna lie, NGL. I actually think I asked you, Celeste, what NGL meant. You're like, what? What is that? It's not gonna lie. Or I asked somebody. Oh, I know. I asked Eric Ianella a couple weeks ago. He was on my show,
Mm.
and I'm like, do you know what NGL? He's like, I never know what you're talking about. I'm not gonna lie. That's what that means. It is. It is. It is. It is a nice beard. We talked about that. But yeah, I'm gonna grow one. No, I'm just kidding. Mine grows gray. But learning from competitors. Interesting. Today, we had a couple of calls in the community. In our, if anybody's looking to check out some people making dials, some experts making dials in Call Blitz, just check out my. It's on my page, so you guys can find the link there. But they are actually, I'll put it up right here.
I
So this is
love that the call blitz, by the way. And I'm not even a
yeah,
cold caller, to be fair,
no,
but I just love it, dude. Seeing people.
it's interesting because there's a lot of interesting people and you hear a lot of great feedback and it's something it's actionable and I think it's really working out well. But no, what I was going to say was I think somebody was talking and they were saying like, well, when they get into the call or they're trying to talk to the person and they obviously maybe they already have something in place or maybe they're working with an agency or obviously if there's debt they probably are working with somebody, right? I'm sure
Mm-hmm.
you get a considerable amount of outbound going, or even when the inbound is going to get to questions like this, but they're maybe if it's coming inbound, maybe they're switching from somebody else
Yeah.
for some reason that it's not working out. So there's always like the opportunity, right, to find out about how you can position your product and service against the competition in
Yeah.
future conversations by leveraging what that person who's actually giving you the time of day knows. And so what I feel like a lot of salespeople tend to do is, they may even lead with problems or they lead with features. You should be leading with pains, but they're leading with features and they're showing the demo or they're saying this, that I could do this, that, the other thing. And then they'll ask a question like, oh, who are you using or who are you working with on there? Oh, okay, right. And it's like they just want to know who. So, but why don't you ask about that
Yeah.
person? Like, how are they handling it? Like, if you're on the other side of it, your competitor is actually something that that who you're talking to is using. And then so you got to ask them like, well, what is it that you like about it? What is it that you don't like about it?
Bingo.
I ask the question all the time. It's after I kind of get to the end where nothing seems like they're happening and that they seem to be happy with whatever they got. And
Mm-hmm.
I'll say something like, okay, well, does it do this? Can you do that? Is that important to you? Blah, blah, blah. And then they're like, no, 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 no. And I'll be like, if if anything, if there's anything that it doesn't do, that you wish he could, is there anything that these guys are not providing to you that you wish they could?
Yeah.
And what does it look like in a more utopic thing for you? Like, what would be better for you? What would make you sleep easier at night? Like whatever it is, right? Like nobody wants to learn about the competitor. That's how you learn about the competitor. You ask the person that's using your competitor exactly what's going on with it. Like, how do
No,
you use it? How do you,
100%.
and then it naturally will come to you because like they think, oh, it's you're leading with features and benefits. That's what you're going to harp on. Oh, we already have something that does that. We already have something that does that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, great. So now you're just picking, you're fishing, and nobody wants to have a conversation like that, right?
No, for
So when
sure.
you get them to talk, it's like that's where I feel like you learn from competitors. But I think you've got this interesting take where you could bring them on a show, an event or however you call it,
Yeah, just a
and you
podcast, man.
and you talk about it. I don't know. I'm trying to find a different thing for that. I think these LinkedIn lives um, are podcasts and they can be repurposed onto podcast channels. And I've been treating it like that. But it's really, like Jesse's show this evening, everybody, Wednesdays is Whiskey Wednesdays by Reveting. It's on at 9 p.m. Eastern. And she runs the show. And she and we always talk about this. It's like an event,
Mm-hmm.
and like I'm going to build this to be similar, but like online, when they had the audio events, they have audio events on LinkedIn. Those are cool. Like, they used to be really a lot cooler, and they're not really that cool anymore. I think
Yeah, yeah.
Clubhouse sort of like blew that up for them. But
Shut
it's
up
like,
shop.
do you know what Clubhouse is? Did you know
No,
what that is?
no, I actually
Oh,
don't.
yeah, that was like another platform, but it was an audio platform. So like you would join just like LinkedIn Audio, like they have
Okay.
audio groups. I don't know if you ever saw LinkedIn Audio, but
I,
LinkedIn
I've
has audio
I've tuned
groups.
into the LinkedIn audio, but not on the Clubhouse
Clubhouse
side.
was the same. Clubhouse was the
Okay.
exact same setup where you're on this platform. It's totally different platform, but it was like you were on this platform and you could set up like a conversation like that and you can have as
Mm.
many people as you want. You could have thousands of millions of people. It was insane. Like there
Okay.
was actors in there. There were like people you can get access to that you would never have been able to. Like
Dang.
I think Snoop Dogg was
He would.
on a panel
He would.
and then there was like 19,000 people or something tuning in at any given moment. It was like
That's wild.
insane. All and it was like on this platform. LinkedIn would like explode if they had 19,000. But no, they have LinkedIn Audio, and it's similar to that. But anyways, yeah, and I just think like the ability to have an open conversation with somebody, like one of your competitors or even a fellow business owner or whatever.
Yeah.
It's such a great forum to really my guy Shane Mahi, he runs these like leadership council things or like these sort of dinners where he invites executives and CEOs to have a conversation with each other at a really nice place with really great food and really great drinks,
Yeah,
and like
yeah.
have a topic of conversation. And he facilitates these live events, and it indirectly brings them business,
No, for
and
sure.
it's just an amazing and it's amazing to see if you just ask what your competitors would actually be willing to sit down and talk to you about.
Yeah.
So
I
I'm
mean,
excited to actually dig into some of those shows, even though it may not be a topic that's
you
close to
don't
mine.
open your whole book when you're talking to them, obviously. Like you keep
No,
your little shells. But no, I mean, like even there are
no,
some
but the truth of the
Yeah,
problems,
yeah. Or
because you
look,
share the same kind of challenges.
that differentiator peg is like there are a lot of agencies that are strong on digital communication, and obviously AI is floundered about all over the place in our industry, and so leaning into that. Or you could have a tremendous agency but your client is looking for open API integration so that they can just move all the accounts into a folder on their dashboard and it boom 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 into your system, rather than doing like a let me send you the Excel sheet, SFTP, and so on and so forth. And doesn't take anything away from the agency maybe they were using before, but kind of going back to how you started this with leaning on the problem statement or the pain point instead of the features is once you highlight one of those little nuggets, and it goes back to that post in you advertising for the show is, I made the comment to you when we were chatting is selling a solution to someone that doesn't make sense to them is like wiping your bum before you poop. Like it really just doesn't make sense. And so having that type of
You could
lens,
say
like,
ass on here, even though
oh,
it's
okay, it's like wiping your ass before you poop, man. It's not
yeah,
like I'm not trying to just sell you my service so that I can add a little notch on my belt. Like if you're a true salesperson and a real seller with some integrity, like, dude, I'm trying to hook you up with a solution all day. So that's
yeah.
kind of my lens on
It's
competition.
funny. I call on these like blue collar field service type technician leaders,
Hmm.
and what I'm finding a lot of times is they're no longer in the service role, right? They are actually in the sales role.
Mm.
And I'm like, oh, well, that makes a lot of sense, right? Because you're working on this heavy piece of equipment, you're interacting with the customer who is using that piece of equipment, you know the product inside out. Now all of a sudden you're on the sales side. This is why I say that so many people could come back to our original statement here,
Yeah, yeah, full
that so many
circle.
people come from other parts into sales, because sales is not like, a lot of people used to hate it. They think, oh, the person in sales is that extroverted,
Hmm.
talker, like some people might
Say
describe me.
anything, lie to your face. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's like weird. Like the first thing I ever learned in sales was never answer a question you don't know the answer to. Like that was just
Yes.
like
Which is still so
that
many
never.
people still make that mistake. And in fact, more to that is you saying, "Oh, I don't know, but let me speak to my team internally and I'll get back to you real quick." Like that could be the most powerful thing that you could say in that scenario. You know what I mean? So, no,
Well, people don't
I'm a
lean into that. They don't want to be the kind of person who doesn't know the answer. They want to be the
yeah.
yes person, and it's okay not to be. So great lesson from that. So do you guys, in your outbound efforts, is like how much involved are you with like actually outbound, like whether it be email or phone, or do you
Yeah.
get in the
So
trenches with your team?
no, for sure. For sure. So keeping in mind, I'm overseeing our sales division. So like
Mm.
myself, my personality is not that of being a debt collector. I tried for a handful of months and it just no bueno, no dice. I don't have that, but I do on the sales side. So phone, and can I kind of marry phone and the meeting space like we were talking to into one, or are you talking about like a cold outbound? Um,
I was talking about so you're in more sales, so you're going to handle that more
yeah, yeah.
complex
Well,
conversation, the second level conversation, but you might have it on the first call.
and just with outbound to begin with, I'm kind of like drawn into it's not one channel, man. You got to
Mhm.
hit them on the phone, but then small email, couple sentences, no links. Like, don't
Mhm.
trigger sales resistance in an email, which is the number one mistake that most sellers make. Ping them on the LinkedIn, hit them with something specific. Hey, what? Oh, you went to university of such and oh, that's awesome. Go Cougars, or like anything, but it's not any one channel that's going to get you to the finish line. It's massaging and utilizing access to multiple channels, like even SMS text message. Dude, a couple weeks ago, somebody encouraged me to start doing the video DMs on LinkedIn. Hey, Mark. Hey,
Absolutely.
this is Chris. Saw that we were connected. Dude, I sent out 10. I got 6 people to respond to me same day. I've
Absolutely.
already had 2 meetings from it.
The
So
bar
it
is here. The bar
dude,
is
it's
like
a
here.
mirage of channels, if we're
Yeah.
going outbound. And
Video
so is
chat. Yeah, absolutely. Video DMs, awesome. Great to hear that you're using that. I mean, I got my first video DM. I think it was video. It might have been audio, but I think it was video, and it was from Larry Long Jr. I don't know if you know that name, but Larry Long is a guy who brings probably the most incredible amount of energy. I suggest anybody following here look him up and definitely follow him. In fact, I was
Larry
inspired.
Long. I'll need to check it out
Larry
for sure.
Long Jr. Yeah, it's very hard not to see him. He's into helping. He's into like a high school, college sports, and helping
Cool.
people in that industry, and a couple of other motivational things. But he used to do a midweek motivational moment, right? And I was
Get
a
it.
little bit inspired by that. And that's how I started this kind of show, because it first started as a 15-minute block. It was
Hmm.
Max Midweek Moment, and I used to come on and do 15 minutes by myself. And well, if you know anything about me, there's no way I could
Yeah.
talk for
You,
15 minutes.
what
So
did you cover just the intro in that span or what? I had 8 more things that I wanted to talk to you about. You're going to have to catch it next week on.
Exactly. No, I tried to be concise with it. I wrote it down and everything. Like I knew what I was, and it was hard, but it creeped it to 18 minutes, just like this is creeping already over for. But like, for all intents and purposes, yeah, it was a. It's so funny. I actually I wanted to tell this really quick thing about debt collection, right? So you talk about specialized roles, there's sales roles, there's marketing roles, and all this kind of stuff, right? And the industry that we're in now, or that we kind of circle around here on LinkedIn and stuff, is tech sales, and there's this SDRs, and there's AEs, and there's all these specialized roles, and I grew up really in the full cycle sales type of arena, right, where we did everything.
Yeah.
In a lot of those cases, they were small territories, maybe revenue $2-3 million. It wasn't a recurring thing. It was actually that you had to repeat it every year. There was no contracts. It was transactional sales, and I was doing $2, $3, $4 million in some cases. A lot of these things, and think about people who do $2 million, $3 million in ARR. That's on contract. They don't have to worry about it. They have customer success handling that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I didn't have to go see every single one of my customers as a Sherwin-Williams rep to make sure that they actually bought paint, because they're going to buy paint no matter what. Because if they don't, then that means they're going under, right? And so
you're performing the maintenance,
Yeah, so you do that. You do maintenance on the existing accounts to keep them going and try to grow, and you're responsible for growing that. It was all broken down, and then you had to get new business, and so it was like everything, and you even had to do. I swear to God, and this is where the collections come in. I had to go collect money. I worked actually not for Sherwin-Williams, but I was working for another company, and it was we work with contractors, and those contractors would install materials that we made in our extrusion plant, and they would install them in hospitals and schools and stuff like that, and then they would owe us money, right? And I always thought it was funny because like I never saw this guy, right? He would buy massive amounts of stuff, and one day he owed us like 20 grand, and it was already a couple of months due, and he was one of those types of guys who would use vendors, blow them out, and then move on to the next vendor that could sell him the same thing and still maintain his projects. But it caught up with him, and so one day I go to his office. I drive all the way out to Long Island, and I walk into this, like, it was like one of these office kind of park kind of things, and I go into this doorway, and I'm in this like kind of glass booth, and there's another door, and then there's like this door, and it had a little window, and the girl sitting behind the counter, and it was like bulletproof glass and stuff, something I don't know, and I'm like, is Carmine here? And she's like, who are you? And I'm like, I'm Mark. I'm from Impro, whatever. And she's like, hold on a second, right? He comes down. I was like, can you let me in? Like, I don't want to talk to you. Oh, that's what it was first. That's actually what happened first. I was trying to talk to her, but there was no way to, like, she couldn't. It was like really. Yeah, and I'm like, can I come in? Like, can you let me in? And so she lets me in. That's what happened. She lets me in, and I say, oh, I'm just here to talk to him about some money that he owes us, right? And he comes down, and he's like, how can I help you? And I was like, I'm Mark, and I hand him my business card, right? And I'm from Impro. I'm like, I was hoping we could talk about your bill. And he's like, and he owed us like 20,000. And mind you, this is not my money.
Yeah.
Right. Like, why do I got to go collect it? Right. But like you said earlier, like if it's like for the company, it's like if you don't collect that money, it's like the sale never happened.
100%.
Right. And in fact, in their cases, they probably already paid me the commission on that sale anyway.
And so a lot of cases it is.
Yeah, and now now it's like they're in the red. And so it was kind of it's a funny story because he like looks down at my card, and by the way, I work for a company out of Wisconsin, and he's like, you came all the way from Wisconsin to collect your money? I'm like, yeah, me and my Brooklyn accent came all the way from, all the way over to, the George Washington Bridge. Yeah, exactly. No, but it's true. Like, collections, like I had a guy who owed us at Sherwin-Williams, he owed us money. And I wanted to do business with him. He was a really cool paint contractor, and I always had fun going to his office, and we'd have drinks and smokes and things. Yeah. And I just said to him one day, I used to get him jobs too, and I'm like, look, I'm like, you owe me this money, and we're trying to work with your AP girl, and she doesn't answer our calls, and I'm like, you owe this, and it's about to go to collections. I said, can we just work out some kind of plan? Like, can you just give me like 1,000 a month or 1,000 a week? Like, give me 2,000 now. You owe me 20.
Yeah.
Give me 2,000 now. You know, and that guy, Carmine, I wouldn't. I said, dude, I'm not leaving until you write me a check.
Until we got something, on paper.
I mean, his last name ended in a vowel. I didn't care. You know, and I was like,
in Brooklyn, no less.
Yeah, I said me and my Brooklyn accent. He knew who
Yeah.
was standing in front of him in my suit.
Hilarious.
Used to wear a suit. Anyways, but no, and so like, you know, this guy Frank, I said, Frank, come on, man. I'm like, let's just do something. So you have to keep your business going. You want to buy paint. What are you going to do? Blow it out? And by the way, the guy Carmine, he actually owed Stryker. I think it was Stryker's, like a big med bed manufacturer, like 500,000.
Oh, dang.
So
Okay,
he only owed me 20. I was like, damn, I'm probably not getting paid at all. Yeah. So.
What do you think about that, though, Mark, real quick? Is because I see a lot of scenarios where, do you think that if there is an outstanding balance that's owed to the company, that they should go to the sales agent to try to recoup? Or should you bring that more to like your accounting department or billing department? Or do you think that it's circumstantial? Because there's one scenario where like with your guy, if you guys have a cool relationship, I think that there could be a benefit to me going, come on, Mark, like we talk once a week, man. I'm 20K in the hole. Like, let's work together here. But on the opposite side of that, are you burning that every salesperson is a relationship builder. Are you burning that relationship by your company going, hey, Chris, this guy owes 20K. Go and see that through for us. Like, what's your stance on that? Yeah,
Why do you
it
think I
happens
was
all the
there?
time.
They asked me to go get that money.
Yeah.
Right. And I go, what? At first, I was like, but you know, but it's true. Like if you're really have business acumen, if you really understand how businesses work, you'd understand that regardless of the fact that you might have gotten paid, and maybe it's not really, you know, low level salesperson, whatever, but like the senior vice president of sales go handle that, you know, like you.
Yeah, no,
you're
for
the
sure.
senior director.
Like you do it.
If
man.
if one of your people are in that situation, then, you know, but I think it's a culture thing. I don't think companies have that shit rolling all the way downhill. In that sense, they don't want to trouble their sales reps with that. So that's why they have an AP or an AR department and people like you guys to collect if they can't.
Also, those sales reps burn the opportunity because they don't want to cross that line, and they let the guy off the hook for months and months that turns to years. And going back to that comment I made earlier, the longer it's outstanding, the less probable it is to be able to be collected. Because I'll have guys reach out to me and go, well, he hasn't paid in over a year and a half. Okay, so we're looking at a pretty bleak probability of repayment. How come it took a year and a half? Well, we're waiting on the sales guy, and the sales guy didn't want to kill the relationship by assignment to an agency. And so I don't think there's a one size fits all, but I saw like even Justin just put in the chat. It depends on the company, depends on the size, you know, companies doing chargebacks. Yeah, exactly, man. So like it's not a one size fits all, but I definitely see that all the time where people are earning that opportunity by going to sales.
Well, I had to deal with that because there was action on customers that I couldn't control, right? You know, like this guy, Frank, I wanted him to stay as a customer. I wanted him to continue to entertain me when I came to his office
for real,
in the middle of the day. No, that's
and
not
I don't know how you left, but Frank couldn't have been too pleased that you showed up out of the blue out of his office looking for 20K, right?
No, Frank was okay. He was the one that owed me a little bit. No, 20K Carmine.
The other guy, yeah.
Semantics. No, but I get your point.
Super stoked with you, you know.
No, you don't. They're not, and you had to like, because what would happen is it was so intertwined and kind of like incestuous in a way. Because like I would get them a job because I'd be walking around the city. I had a different life than what I do now. I used to be walking around the city and I would file. I swear to God. I would see a bunch of sheetrock being hoisted up the side of a building going into like a commercial office property in New York City.
And I would and all that good stuff.
I would so I see this thing being loaded in. I literally got in the elevator on the side of the building. I got in the elevator with, Jose and, Pablo and whatever, who
Mm-hmm.
was hauling up these pieces of sheetrock. And by the way, I'm in a suit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you didn't slap on the yellow vest. You just
Not
went.
yet. No, I
Okay.
do
Okay.
that, but yeah, there I had to. Maybe
You
I
know
was
what?
whatever. Anyway, so and I go up and we're inside the building, and of course I'm like, where's the party chief? Where's the chief? El Jefe?
Mm-hmm.
Where's the foreman? Whatever. And I find out about the job. Oh, what's going on with what you're the GC? Oh yeah, I'm the GC. Are you doing all the sheetrock work, or is that contract? Yeah, it's contracted. I said, you guys got the paint contract yet out? No? Okay, can I get a shot at that? Yeah, sure, why not? You do
Dang.
painting? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. I'm from Sherwin-Williams. They don't know. Like some of these guys are like Sherwin-Williams. They sell paint and they do painting.
Yeah.
No, that's all right. And so then I'll go to Frank. Hey, Frank, I seen this job. Here's the guy. Go put your bid in. Right? Mind you, Frank actually came back to me and said one day that I got him a job that was a dog. And I said, if you know lingo, the dog means like he's losing money on it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Oh
I'm
no,
like,
I'm
well,
aware.
what happened? And he bid the job. Like I found out from the GC. This is the thing. This is how when you have the relationship with everybody, this is what happens. And I found out from the GC that he goes, oh, I awarded your guy the job. Oh, thank you very much. He was $60,000 less than everybody else. Oh, is he really? Oh, okay.
Oh dang.
So now all of a sudden, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 6 months later, Frank's got the job. He's painting the job, and all of a sudden he's like bitching at me, and I'm like, "What are you bitching?" He goes, "It's a dog." I go, "It's a dog." I go, "Who said that you needed to? I didn't ask you to bid it
A
$60,000
low
less
him.
than."
Yeah.
I didn't. That wasn't. Well, I wanted to get in with him and get more work. Well, then shut up. Like,
Yeah,
stop
man.
complaining to me. I
Yeah,
got you the
that's
job. So I
hilarious.
was so like, I had all these like things going about, and then like, if the job don't go well, that's a reflection on me. But yeah, it's exactly yeah. So it's like I hustled. I
Hmm.
hustled to get both sides of the work so I could guarantee it.
No, for sure.
I could guarantee the jobs, and I mean, man, I can talk all day about that. I used to
Yeah, I was
stand
gonna
on
say you
corners.
got some stories back there,
I used
Mark.
to
I know
stand
it.
on the corner of like 49th Street and like 8th Avenue, okay,
Hmm.
in like about lunchtime, midday, and all these trucks would go by, and they would all be paint trucks and construction trucks, and I would just write all their names down
Dang,
and
dang.
make phone, and they all had phone numbers on there. And then when I got a phone, of course, with a camera, I used to take camera pictures.
That's
But
like the original street sales hustler, man.
yeah,
Like that's even probably before your residential solar door knocks. It's like, brother, we out here, man. It's sink or swim. What my old boss used to say,
actually,
old school sales. Pay phone book. That's all you need, son.
yeah, phone is king. I mean, listen, you really wanna get to the root of anybody's problem and whether or not you can help them. Yes, quienes LFA, exactly. Uh, is by just having a conversation, right?
Yeah.
Like I think there's a guy who wrote this thing just the other day. It was a little bit about um, focusing on the people who are raising their hand.
Mm.
Demand capture. Like the name of his company is Demand Capture. I forget who this is. And I was reading what he wrote, and I'm like, okay, so your whole and nothing against him. I mean, sure he's doing well, but like his whole thing is about capturing that less than 5% of the market that's raising their hands. So I get
Yeah.
it. You could be competitive there. If you could capture more of what your competitors are getting in that 5%, good for you,
Then yeah, then
right?
for sure play
But I
ball.
I never I guess I've never been there. I never had the inbound.
Yeah.
I think that's really interesting. I'm so one day I might work for a company that is completely inbound. I don't know.
You know what? Look, it's a different skill set. I wouldn't say anyone is more or less.
It's harder. I
I'm
think it's
living the
harder.
outbound. You think the inbound is harder?
I think it is. I think you lose more on the inbound than
Oh,
you do.
100. Oh, way more scrutinized. Because if you're getting 100 hot leads a week, that's quantification that is more telling than, I booked 5 outbound meetings last week. It's way faster, way different metrics.
They're high. They're more high intent, but it's your competition is higher.
Yeah.
Their education of what they think is their education of their problem and the solutions out there, they think is higher. So you're fighting people who think they're 80% of the way already, as they say. And I'd rather play in the 95%
Dude,
that
it's
doesn't
easy
know
to
they have a
talk to
problem.
somebody who you know is interested in you, right? It's pretty, and that's why going back to
Yeah.
your cold call show, it takes a special weirdo to be able to fall in love with talking to someone who is not interested in you and with the sole objection or objective of, hey man, I want to get this guy interested. Like it's a way different mind game, talking to
Yeah.
someone who likes you, even in high school, you got girl A at this table, she's got a crush on you, but girl B over there,
Thank you, Justin.
man, she didn't even know who you are, brother. Like that's a different approach and conversation to begin with.
Yeah, man. Well, listen, this has been great. Before we get too far, we got to. Is there anything that gets you over the hump, Mr. Chris Walcher,
Yeah, man. I got so
other
cliche.
than
Dude,
being you?
my family gets me over the hump. Wednesday is the half point of the week, and so Wednesday is your catalyst. If you've had a crap week leading up to Wednesday, well, the whole week doesn't have to be crap. Today is the day to make that impact to turn the table. And
Absolutely.
so I think that harnessing that hump day mentality, understanding that you have the control to change what the outcomes are for the rest of the week. I mean, we're getting very gospely here, but yeah, man, that's lean into your why. If it's a Monday, a Wednesday, or a Friday, remind yourself what your why is. And look, man, just use any little tricks of the trade to keep you at it. So that's what I
Yeah.
got.
Well,
That's
this
my
has been a
hump
great
day hack.
conversation. I would love to definitely continue our conversation one-on-one some other time because
Oh, for sure.
I'll leave you with this. When I was a freshman in high school, our school had what they called Sing. It's
Hmm.
called Sing. It was a theater competition between the grades, but freshmen and sophomores had to team up. So it was sophomore sing, junior sing, and senior sing. When my brother went to the school, he won all 3 years,
Dang.
and I was a kid, and I was so like enthralled with the whole event that when I got to high school, I joined sophomore sing like as soon as they had tryouts, right? And
Speaking my
I was
language,
actually
dude. I'm a
I was
theater kid.
actually I became the lead in the show, and
Get it.
my girlfriend at the time was the opposite of me, and we were
Get
two
it, man.
freshmen, right? And then I spent a huge amount of time at a camp every summer, and it was actually a Jewish sleepaway camp, and so on Fridays they would have a hike. Everybody would go on a hike except the people who were going to be in the show on
Ah,
Saturday night. Okay, because Saturday night was the show. Friday night is Shabbos, and then into Saturday, and then you
okay.
have right, and so then you have the show on Saturday night. And so on Fridays you would have full dress rehearsal, and so you couldn't go on the hike. And the hike was awesome because it was a Jewish camp, and so the food wasn't really that great. So when you went on the hike, you could get like all kinds of candy and stuff. So when
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
a kid,
Snack out for sure.
it's awesome, right? So every week I was in the show, every kind of show, from Guys and Dolls to Hello Dolly to cat, all these different shows.
God, I
And then
love that,
and then
man.
one
Are you
one
sure
week
the
I
show
said,
ends, man? I'll talk to you all day about your
no,
theater
no, we're gonna
background.
end it. But then there was one week I said, I want to go on the hike. I want to get candy. I want to not be in the show this week. And
Hmm.
I didn't go to the tryout, and it happened to be Peter Pan. And I was like, I'm not going to be in it. I was in it like 2 years before that, and so I was like, I don't want to be in it. And so it was Monday, and then Tuesday, and then Wednesday came by, and then all of a sudden the Matt who runs the show comes to me literally like late Wednesday evening and was like, I need you in the show. And I said, I don't want to be in the show. He goes, I need you to be Captain Hook. And I said, so you really want me to learn 167 lines in 3 nights?
Dang.
And I
Well,
did
yeah.
it.
Did you?
I did
Get
it.
in,
I
bro.
did it, and I probably messed up a lot of them, but I remember the stress involved in that. Like I stayed up like the next 3 nights trying to learn lines, and like,
I
but I did
love
that
that.
show, and then where my career in theater came to a screeching halt was in college, right? So I went
Hmm.
to college and I was a political science major, but I was a theater drummer, a theater minor, and my challenge there was that all these kids who really were serious about theater were like so into, like, we had these group things that we had to do, and they were like in character all the time, and like I was
Yeah.
the kind of person who could just turn it on and turn it
Yeah.
off.
You were like
and
walking
they,
in all method and
and I'd be like, we'd be walking in the podium area, and I walk by them, and they're like, "Thou shalt not," whatever we were doing, right? And like, I'm just like, dude, I'm not in costume, I'm not in character. Like, leave me alone. And like, I just thought it was odd. Like, I never was a theater geek like that. I just was more of a improv type of
no, for sure.
improv sort of situational humorist, I guess, in a way.
Yeah, no, for sure. I'm
Um,
sure you'd
and that
probably
was my.
make a pretty good stand-up comedian, man.
Oh, so you want me to tell you that story? So
Like, yeah, dude, I told you, dude. How much more time do we
I do
have?
have.
Let's
All right,
go.
so we have one more minute, one more quick
Okay.
story. This is for the audience as well. So I used to belong to a youth group when I was in high school, and I had a couple of different lives. And I was in a high school youth group, and we used to go away on a convention. And a convention is like all these kids like hanging out in a hotel for the weekend, right? And like the Poconos or something.
The best.
Yeah, it was awesome. and so they do a talent show, and I really was not going to be in the talent show. I never really had any clue that I would be in the talent show. And but I was I ran the whole like weekend, right? I was like this. Actually, at this particular one, I wasn't running the whole thing. I was actually younger, but I actually grew up in this organization. I wound up running one of the conventions. But anyway, so it was an earlier time in my career there, if you will, and we were out on the football field, and we were just playing games that day, and the show was that night. And it was a long time ago. It was when Andrew Dice Clay was very popular, right? He had just came out with his whole routine, right? And I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's kind of dirty, so I'm not going to really say it here. But he was the guy that does all the like wacky rhymes, and he turns them
Oh yeah,
into.
no,
Oh,
I'm
so
familiar. Oh, I'm familiar. I was
and
one of those theater geeks, so you're
yeah,
speaking
and
my language.
so out on the field, I was just messing around, and I was doing it. Like and I'm from New York more than everybody else was. Like they're all from New York too, but like and I did it, I guess, good for a kid, And they're like, you should do that on the talent show, and I'm like, no way, I'm not doing it. Get out of here. And even though I'm slightly extroverted, I was like, actually, I don't want to do that. Like, first of all, it's not me. I'm impersonating Andrew Dice Clay, but they thought I just was funny and I did it good, right? And it was crazy because I got up, I actually did it. I did it.
That's where it is,
but
man.
what was incredible, and I wish somebody has it on tape somewhere, but what was incredible is that I did a couple of his rhymes and his moves with his like, a cigarette, and I did the whole cigarette upside down thing. And and I was actually literally smoking on stage, so people were like, "How's this guy smoking?" And but then I improv, like I ad libbed off the cuff. I did not even practice this. A rhyme using the two directors, the executive directors, these two women who everybody loves
and knew them,
knew them. And I put them into like a nursery rhyme joke that everybody just fell out.
Destroyed.
Like that was 300 people in this room, all these kids, and the two gals themselves. They were like, they couldn't stop laughing.
That's the best feeling in the world.
I took the whole place down with that joke, and it came off the cuff. Like I didn't know what I was saying because I had to come up with something, and I just like pulled it literally out of my ass. I was like, Jane and Mary quite conditioned, whatever, like it wasn't one of those, but I totally made it up on the fly, and it fucking killed. And I was like,
that's awesome.
Maybe I have a stand-up comedy.
And this, I know you're trying to wrap it up, but that will get us to the full circle moment of where we started, that whatever you did in your experience before sales, I promise you, Mark, those little nuggets translated into why you're a killer today. Whether it's the way you talk to people, your ability to host a show like this, there's a ton of those little nuggets, including a brief stint at stand-up comedy, that turned the hump into the hump My man, thank you for having me today.
I love
brother.
it, man. I love it. Well, thanks, and thanks everybody. I really appreciate you coming on. It's really been my pleasure. I'm glad we were able to get into some interesting topics and really kind of churn it out here. Join us next week, April 9th. I am bringing my main man. I've been waiting for this guy for a long time. My main man, Alex Bruschi, coming to me from LA style. So he's going to bring a whole lot of, we're going to be talking content, video content. This man is the real deal. Check him out. His name is Alex Bruschi, Bruschi. He's coming on next week. And then sometime in April, I'm bringing on the one and only Lawrence Sermon, and we're going to talk recruiting and what's going on, ups and downs in that world this month as well. So thanks for everybody for joining. I'm Mark Mack. This was The Hump, and stay right there where you don't go anywhere, Chris. But thanks everybody for listening. Catch the replay also on YouTube. Peace.